Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This big boy is the Maxace Rock. One of the most interesting things about this knife is the price tag. I'll link it right down below and we'll talk about it here in a bit. If you guys can use the links if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's up to you. Thanks so much to Maxace for providing this knife for review. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. Overall length is not a small knife for many reasons, actually. 9 inches. Blade length is coming in about 3.85. Cutting edge is 3.75 inches. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. So you can see here it's definitely on the larger side for sure. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Once again, that's pretty big. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out, and then I'll also throw in the Demco AD 20.5. Okay, it's big, we get it. How's the action? If you don't know, by the way, Maxace knives are made in China. They offer, in my opinion, as somebody who has handled, I think it's fair to say a lot of knives, right? I was putting it mildly. They have some of the very best production execution on the market, right? When we're talking about, machine produced knives, these are some of the most perfectly executed knives. They're just ridiculous. Their fit and finish is incredible. The action off the flipper tab is incredibly satisfying. Very snappy, right? You can use the thumb studs, which are like thumb blobs. I don't know what to call those. They work, right? Something that's really unfortunate. Disengagement of the lock bar is plenty easy, right? It's nicely cut out right here. You can see it's carved out on either side, and there's plenty of room to get your finger in there. Problem is that we have textbook double clutch. What does that mean? A lot of us finicky folks like to disengage the lock bar and have the flipper tab, the blade drop and have the flipper tab catch on our thumb so that we can turn the blade and turn the knife like this and watch the blade fall into the closed position. The problem is it cannot do that because the detent ball is not up on the face of the blade yet. It's right there, right? That's unfortunate. At this point, we want that detent ball to be up on the face of the blade like this so that you can turn and then sort of wiggle it into the closed position, right? Does that make it not a good knife? No, it makes it obnoxious for a select group of people who care about double clutch. If you don't care, right, then who cares, right? It doesn't matter. You can do this, which is use the detent ball to quickly kick it into the closed position. Some people prefer that, right? So look at that how you will. Double clutch is present for those of you who are bothered by it. The action itself, right, the bearing action is very good. A little bit of encouragement down into the closed position. This will likely smooth up and become fall shut over time as that detent ball wears its race into the blade, or the blade tank face. Let's go ahead and do carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Wow, that's thick. It's big, right? Doesn't matter at the butt or at the front, right? It's thick. Big boy. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This is a big knife. Length and height, including the flipper tab, both at least as tall as the hump on the PM2 and Para 3. So for a lot of people, this is going to be a big boy. If you've been carrying bigger knives, you might not care as much, right? But for most people, this is going to be an adjustment process. Materials. This is interesting. We're, of course, looking at M390. And let me say something. Reports on Maxace M390 are odd. I've had some people claim without any evidence that they measured it. I had a guy, really specifically a guy in the comment section saying that it came in super low and then offered absolutely no evidence whatsoever. I've seen some people who are actually capable of measuring Rockwell hardness say it's kind of medium. Other people say, oh, it's right where it should be. M390, when we're talking about production or commercial M390 and not something that was custom made right? And very carefully, specifically heat treated. I expect 60 to 62. 59, in my opinion, is a bit low, and anything under 59 is absolutely low. I think the initial acceptable rock wall hardness is 60, and it's better at 61 or 62. Whether or not they are actually hitting those marks consistently is, at the moment, kind of unclear. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't have the capability to test it. I would suggest that you follow Transparent Knives on Instagram because he does a lot of that testing, and maybe he has more experience than I do. M390 is a great composition when it is heat treated correctly. So there you go. We're looking at micarta. In this case, they also offer it in either black G10 or black micarta. I can't remember if there's a black one and there's a like a natural one, right? This bolster on both sides are actually bolsters. Those are titanium. What's underneath is steel. You can see it's separate. The liners are separate. So I have a steel liner lock with titanium bolsters, and then we've got micarta here. So yeah, there you go. Weight, and by the way, these are milled out for weight reduction. So, and that's good because it's already freaking huge. I'm going to guess this thing weighs like 6 to 6.5 ounces, maybe more. No, I was about right on the money. 6.56 ounces, a big knife, right? Ratios are nowhere near perfect. I feel like people who regularly carry large knives care less and less about ratios. The bigger the knife is, it's more about the fact that it is big. Fortunately, the knife is balanced right in the middle of that, what I call the primary choil, which makes it in hand not feel that heavy, right? And as you kind of maneuver it, right, and you fold it up and you turn it over, then it becomes apparent that it is, in fact, a large, heavy object, right? Let's go ahead and check the hardware, do a hardware check, as I usually say. My tools are in the description. They are very inexpensive and very recommendable. The pivot is, unsurprisingly, a T8. The scale screw is a T8. There's likely at least one other screw underneath here. It could be pin construction, right? If that's the case, it could be T6. This is pretty simple, right? It's not anything that people should be. There's no reason to do an in-depth breakdown because this is a sandwich construction liner lock knife, which is about as common as it gets, right? If this is your very first time seeing this, you can probably guess how it's put together. I feel like it would be a waste of time to go into detail. But the pocket clip screws here are going to be T6. Yep. So you've got more individual pieces of hardware than I like to see, but it's still going to be a pretty simple breakdown. Just make sure you have the proper tools and a place to put your hardware, and you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness. It's funny, like the body or the scales in combination with the liners are really thick, and then the blade is not thin, but it's just funny. I say only. It only comes in at 157 thousandths. Whereas the total thickness of these scales here, if I can grab them in the right place, I don't know. Here we go. So we can grab them back here. These guys are coming in at about the same. Okay, well, then they're about the same. Okay, it's just maybe it's an optical illusion. All right. Meat and potatoes time. This has a real Sinkovich look to it. Not that Sinkovich owns the S-shaped curvature of any folding knife, right? It just makes me think of the old ZT Sinkoviches and the Sinkovich custom stuff, or his collaborations with Shirogorov, etc., right? Big S-shaped curvature, Persian-style trailing point blade that's real wicked and nasty looking and looks like it's going to slice and cut really well, which it does. It's fairly thick behind the edge, if I'm being honest, but it's not. I'm sorry, it's not fairly thick. It's thicker than, something like the Rat, right? It's on the thicker side, but I'm not going to say that it's aggressively thick behind the edge. It is plenty capable of slicing, right? And really, I'm not seeing a lot of lift off the edges of the paper. People like to point out the paper cut test doesn't prove anything. I agree, it doesn't prove anything. What I'm showing you here is how the factory edge does against something like paper. Obviously, your mileage is going to vary if you're cutting into plastic, rubber, styrofoam, cardboard. It depends on what you're cutting, right? You're going to push that entire wedge through the material. But the factory edge is sharpened well, and despite it being somewhat thick behind the edge, it is obviously capable of slicing, which is really the only reason that I do that. it's going to change as you sharpen it. This has a really nice tumbled finish on it. I like that. It's got some fingerprints on it. Sorry about that. But the finish is really nice. Maxace does a good job with that. It's kind of a medium polish and then little teeny tiny even scratch pattern, which looks really good. The titanium bolster and the micarta look is also really nice. I really appreciate that this is actually titanium. Obviously, if it was steel, it'd be even heavier. I think this is how they managed to get it down to this price point here, which is really, really impressive. Ergonomically, it's very comfortable, except for the pocket clip, which is, where is the little magnet? The pocket clip is titanium. The magnet has no interest in the. And I know people go, well, it could be aluminum. It's not aluminum, right? The whole reason to check here is it's either titanium or steel at this price point, right? It's only when we get to much higher price points is the pocket clip some other weird material. But at this price point, it's either going to be titanium or steel, and it is titanium, but it's stamped out, which is okay because again, the price is pretty good. Everything else, like the backspacer's titanium, the bolster's titanium. And then the pocket clip is titanium. Since we're talking about hardware, I should point out Maxace is one of those companies that sends you an extra of everything, which is really cool because if you need a part replaced by Maxace, I don't know this for sure, but what I've heard is it's probably not going to happen. And that's honestly the way that it is with a lot of companies, right? If you live in the United States or if you don't, I don't know. A lot of companies that are not here in the United States where I am, I've found that it's not every single one, right? And I don't want to make it exclusive to any one country. I'm just saying from what I've heard, you're probably not going to get a piece of replacement hardware. And it looks like Maxace is trying to remedy this because I can understand how that would be problematic, right? If you think about that, a screw, right? Or they may not have the manpower, right? Considering how many of these they're able to make, they may not have the manpower to do customer service calls or things like that. And should they? I guess so. There's an argument to be made on either side. I'm not taking either side, right? What I'm saying is that this is a good move, right? If they are unable to fulfill a warranty, this or that, if they're not able to do that, that stinks. But at least they're offering the additional hardware. This is nice. I like that. I think if you sell a product, then obviously you should be able to offer and fulfill a warranty. I think that's very important. As far as how their warranty program works or anything like that, if you need a replacement, this or that, and whether or not it can be fulfilled, I have absolutely no idea. I've heard from people that it doesn't really work. So I like that they offer additional hardware and a microfiber cloth and all that stuff. I don't really care about the box. People get real, fussy about the box. Like, it should be presented to me. I want the box to present the object. Well, as soon as you have the object, you don't care. The box doesn't come with you. It just stays on the shelf, right? Who cares? But on that note, the box looks nice, right? And it comes with some stuff. The flipper tab is nicely knocked down everywhere, and this is one of those flipper tabs that really allows you to do kind of what you want. If you want to light switch it, it is insanely comfortable and insanely satisfying. If you want to push button it, it is insanely comfortable and insanely satisfying. On the topic of ergonomics, which I started on there, some of these edges are a little bit aggressive, but they're still knocked down, right? But it is comfortable. The general curvature of the handle is acceptable to the human hand. This is going to be more comfortable and more usable in gloves, if you're especially going to be using it for long periods of time. But that pocket clip is going to poke into your hand, especially in your bare skin, right? So just be aware of that. There's a little bit of a choil here, and you can get your finger in there. It's like a single knuckle. I wouldn't do more than that. I'm starting to roll a little bit of skin up there on the edge, and that doesn't make me feel super safe. There's a teeny tiny little bit of jimping right there, and the lock-in is nice, right? So it's good. The thumb studs are not in the cutting path thanks to this little area right here. So you can really get up behind that edge and push straight down if you want to. It says Rock on this side, and then it says Bowler M390. This is, as is the case with all real M390, which this is, it's real M390, comes from Bowler. It's not Chinese M390, it's Bowler M390. That's where they get it, from the Bowler company. Same place that we get it when we're, on American knives or whoever, right? Knives that are made in Italy. When it says M390, it's from Bowler, right? How it's heat treated is up to the company that's creating the knife. There's a flat that carries out maybe 40% or so the length of the blade. Very long swedge, real nice looking Persian style blade that is flat ground and comes down to, like I said, kind of a fairly thick edge. It's sharpened well, right? It's not gonna like shave the fibers of your dead skin off of your finger, right? It's not gonna split wax paper into multiple layers or anything like that. If you wanna do that, then you can do that after the fact. But right out of the box, it comes extremely sharp, you know, as far as factory edges go. And then it's got a nice tip. This will obviously puncture, right? Not a knife, not a blade profile that you should be using for screwing, prying, or anything like that. Not that you should ever use a knife for that, but I think it goes without saying, don't use it for that. Let's see here. Do we have a lanyard apparatus? Yes, we do. Right here at the back. This is a nice way to do this. Is out of the way, right? It's off the body for the few people who care about lanyards. Pocket clip. It's not shallow, but there's quite a bit of knife sticking up out of your pocket, right? There is a bill that rises, right? So in and out of the pocket, it's going to rise to meet most pocket seam thicknesses. And I do appreciate that it is titanium. Titanium is much more forgiving than steel. If you catch a steel clip on a ledge or something as you're walking by and it bends out, you've weakened it quite a bit. Even if you manage to bend it back into place, it's likely eventually going to snap. Titanium is a lot more forgiving. It's a lot more springy. Even if a lot of times it won't even bend. If it does bend, you can bend it back, and you haven't sacrificed much of the strength there, unless you really get a hold of it. But there is quite a bit of rise in that bill, so it might snag something. All in all, it's fine. It's not my favorite clip, but you know they were obviously trying to reduce the cost here. The pocket clip is actually nested in the micarta. I have no idea why they didn't mill out a slot on this side so that lefties could enjoy it too, but they just didn't. So sorry, lefties. You don't have to worry about where to place your fingers when you are deploying this knife because there is no lock bar to put unnecessary pressure on. I'm sorry, exposed lock bar, because this is a liner lock, which is something that I like a lot. You can just put your fingers wherever you want and get that snap. It's cool here, this has garaged stops. You can see the blade stops are actually attached, much like the thumb studs. Sometimes the studs are also the stops. In this case, we have studs and we have secondary stops, and those are garaged or totally hidden within the frame right here. So as it comes back, it goes underneath the frame and locks out, contacting both liners instead of just the blade tang contacting a single stop pin, as is the case with the Rat. So this is a slightly stronger setup in my opinion. An awkward or twisting cut will mitigate pressure away from the pivot better than a setup like this. How much more? Not much more, right? Don't expect it to work like a grappling hook or anything like that. But it's nice. I like that, and I like that they hide it. It's a real nice touch. Since the liner lock itself is steel, it doesn't need a steel lock bar insert. The whole thing is steel already. There's no blade play up, down, left, or right. Your actual, let's give it a good flip here so we can see the true percentage of lockup. It's pretty early. Yeah, maybe we should give it a test-a-roo. I don't like the spine whack test, right? Because I think that a lot of people who do it in a really stupid way. Swinging this thing as hard as you can against a solid surface to see if the lock bar will hold up is an incredibly, it's just a dumb way to test that, right? Like what realistic scenario, right? is the baseline for that, right? It should basically a slight pressure on the spine to see if the lock will hold in place, I think is worth doing, because if you're cutting into dense or thick material and it gets stuck and you're having to wrench it back out, there's a chance if that lock bar geometry or the blade tang geometry is not right that it'll disengage, and guess what? It comes down on your finger, right? But no sane person is running around with the knife using the back of it like a hammer or whatever, right? There's no, but a little bit here just to make sure. I'd say that's good enough for me. So even though the geometry looks a little bit steep there and it looks pretty early, it's holding up. And Maxace has always done a good job with that. That lock bar geometry is very, very important. So under normal circumstances with this knife, you should be okay. Checking for lock rock after having done that. No, it's completely and totally solid. No lock stick either. No pivot lash, as it should be. Very consistent and smooth action in here, and a nice clicky detent with surprise, perfect, or very, very close. Is it slightly off center? I wonder if I can, after flipping it a few times, it may have come slightly off center, which is fine. You just tighten it back down or use some Loctite, right? I don't like knives that are Loctited from the factory because I'm eventually going to have to adjust them anyway, and it's just another thing I have to fight. We'll give it a little turn ski there and see. That looks pretty good to me now. Okay, so yeah, we're good to go. And let's check here. No detent lash either. Okay, what's the deal with the price? I didn't just click on the link right at the beginning of the video complex. I waited for 20 minutes for you to tell me about the price. The price is $148. Yep, it's that's recommendable on price alone, right? I mean, you know, the knife still has to be a functional design, and it is. It's ergonomic enough, it's functional enough, right? This is a style of knife that will serve its purpose in an EDC scenario. It's on the larger side, right? So you kind of have to like a larger knife. It's made well, it's executed well, it's using good materials, and it's an excellent price for the money, all things considered. Maxace has done this a couple of times. The one thing I'm, saying be careful about is I don't know how this blade is heat treated. If this thing is coming in at 57 or 58 Rockwell, it's basically junk, right? You can get budget steel that's hardened correctly, that's not M390, that will perform better. M390 should be 60 to 62. So, if there is consistent reporting from a reliable source, somebody who actually has real Rockwell hardness testing equipment, like Transparent Knives, who I do trust, if they're coming in like, oh yeah, this is hitting regularly in those numbers, right? Then yeah, go for it, right? And maybe if it's 59-61, which is often what we see, it's like bummer, but 66% of the time you're getting anywhere from okay to pretty good, right? Then yeah. At $148, I can't really be that upset, right? As far as I sit with this right now, this is a recommendable knife. It's kind of an incredible price tag, especially if they're hitting those numbers. Super competitive, no surprise from Maxace. They have brought nothing but fire for the last 2 years. I'm always excited to get a package from Maxace because I know it's just going to be insane. I like this knife. Not breaking any records, not reinventing the wheel or anything like that, but it's good. I like it. It'll go in my most recommended knives playlist, which you should check out if you haven't. Thanks again to Maxace for sending this in for review. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.